All right, so we are going to continue on into section 2 of chapter 1, dealing with our statistics, sampling, and our data. So we want to begin looking at the structure of a data set, and I've kind of given you some vocabulary words here, and I've put this into a diagram to help you better visualize just the interaction between these four terms. So our overall picture, our overall thing that we get from an experiment, we get a data set, okay? And our data set is just the information that we collect, everything gathered together, and what are we dealing with? Well, from that data set, so the information we collected that from individuals, and that's our information that we collected maybe from people or from things or from animals. Notice that individuals doesn't necessarily have to be human beings. It can be anything that we collected that data from. Now, when we collected our data, we were focused on a specific characteristic. So maybe we were focused on their eye color. Maybe we were focused on their weight and how their weight changed. Maybe we were focused on how many hours they spent on their homework. Whatever it is that we were focused on, that characteristic, that represents the variable, and obviously the value for every single variable. So the person increased their weight by 10 pounds, by 20 pounds, by 30 pounds, or they spent 5 hours on homework, or 10 hours on a homework, or 12 hours of homework, whatever it may be, that is what represents your data. And so you can see how these four terms work interchangeably. Now, in statistics, because we have so many different data points, so many different variables, and we're talking about 10 million things at once, we have to have a specific way to organize everything in a way that makes it very easy for us to distinguish what we're talking about. And so we have a way that we categorize our types of variables. And so you can see that we have variables, and within variables we have qualitative and quantitative. And then even further we can break it down. In our qualitative variables, we can call them nominal or ordinal variables, or within our quantitative variables, we can have discrete or continuous variables. So we want to make sure that we understand what the difference is between all of these terms. So let's look at the left-hand side first. We're going to talk about qualitative. When we talk about qualitative data, it's basically classifying individuals into different categories. And so we can classify those individuals in many different ways. Maybe you want to classify them by their gender. Are they male or are they female? Maybe you want to classify them by the color of their hair. Are you blonde-haired, black-haired, brown-haired, red-haired? What are you? Maybe you want to classify them by their favorite fruit. Is it bananas? Is it strawberries? Is it raspberries? Is it blueberries? I don't know. Okay? And then once you've determined if you're going to classify them as qualitative, we can even break it down even further into nominal and ordinal data. So if it's nominal, it has no natural ordering. Okay? So let's say we're talking about state of residence. Okay? There is no natural order there. I could live in Florida. I could live in California. I could live in Connecticut. There's not a set way that I generally say those things. You know, I can list them out in any way. Gender, I can say I'm male or female or male. There's not a proper way to list that out. Versus if we're talking about ordinal data, it has a natural ordering. So if I'm going to talk about your letter grade in my stats class, I'm going to say you either got an A, B, C, D, E, F. Well, I guess E doesn't really exist in college, but okay, you get the idea. So an A, B, C, D, or an F. Or maybe I'm going to talk about the size of a soft drink. I'm going to go to McDonald's, I want to get a small, medium, or large, or extra large. Same thing with clothes. You either wear an extra small, small, medium, large, or an extra large. Those have natural ordering, okay? Now let's switch on over to quantitative data. Now that's probably a term that you've heard. Quantitative sounds like quantity. So you're talking about the number of something that you have. So how much or how many of something is there or is evident, okay? Now when you talk about numbers, that can be discrete, meaning that you can count the number of things that there are. So how many pieces of candy do you have? Do you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 pieces of candy? Or we could be talking about something that is continuous. So that means it can take on any value in a specific interval. Okay, so when we think about discrete, again, what is your current age at a specific on your last birthday. Well, you were 18 years old. Or how many siblings do you have? I have 10 siblings. But if we're talking about a continuous variable, it's always changing. It can take on any value, and it's going to differ in so many different ways, like a person's height. Now, if you think about it, a person's height, we generally round it. Like, I'm 5'2", but technically, if we really took a ruler and we measured it down to the very, very last little millimeter, it would be a decimal, okay? And it's going to vary for females in my age category. The heights would vary across a specific interval. Maybe the distance a person commutes to work, it's going to take on a variable that is within a certain interval, pretty much the same for every day, but then it could differ depending on if you take a different route, or if you go the longer way or the shorter way, or you get a detour, but still it's going to be within the same vicinity, or the same within that interval. And so those are kind of our different types of variables that we deal with. And so you're going to be working on categorizing different types of variables and making sure you understand the differences between the categories of qualitative and quantitative and their respective subcategories.